I'm Zosha.
And I'm Kai.
And we're with CostumeNomads.com.
Today our costume is the Parthenon in Athens, Greece.
Parthenon is the biggest Greek sculpture ever made.
It was built to Athena, the patron goddess of the city. Athena won patronarchy in a contest with Poseidon. They both gave the city of Athens a gift, and the Athenian people voted on it according to legend.
Poseidon gave them a spring of seawater, and horses that represented that they would conquer enemies on land and in the sea. And Athena gave them an olive tree, which meant that they would be able to trade peacefully and bargain, and they wouldn't have to fight.
The olive tree is one of the most necessary, incredibly important in Greece, because it made them able to barter with great nations like China. Like, for instance, in China they had silk, in Egypt they had metal, in Greece they had olive oil, and that was the thing they could trade with.
So the Parthenon is built facing the east because of the sun.
For a time, when they were fighting the Persians, the Parthenon was filled with explosives, and when the Turks bombed it, it flew up. Afterwards, the Greeks gathered the pieces and buried them and built a new Parthenon on top of it.
The Parthenon is built on top of the Acropolis, and it's called Acropolis because acro means high, and polis means the city. So it's the highest point in the city.
The new Parthenon was built in accordance to the curves of the earth. The Greek people weren't. They didn't think that the earth was flat. They knew that when the ships went down over the curve of the earth, that it was the curve of the earth and not because they fell off the end of the globe. So the Parthenon has no straight lines. If you go on one side of the Parthenon, you can't see the other, just like you can't see a ship if it's far enough away at sea, because it has a discrete curve, just like the earth. And the other parts of the Parthenon, for instance the columns, were thick at the bottom and narrow at the top to give the illusion of height. And they're built with tiny pieces of columns stacked on top of each other so that they're flexible just like the spine, and when earthquakes come, it doesn't fall over, just like the spine. At one point, the Persians attacked Greece, and the king and his army held them off in a narrow channel as the Athenians ran out of the city. When the Persians entered Athens after conquering the king and his army, they lit the city on fire, and during this fire, the Parthenon was greatly destroyed. The Persians eventually met the Athenian fleet at sea, and after blowing up Athens, they were so greatly weakened they had lost that war, and the Parthenon was again rebuilt. At one point, the British collector ravaged the Parthenon by taking away some of the beautiful marble pieces, and the British Museum still has them today and refuses to give them back. Their excuse being that Athens doesn't have a big enough museum, so Athens built a big museum, and they still won't give them back because why move the pieces? They're already in the British Museum. So the British Museum has a large part of the Parthenon and the beautiful art that was in there originally.
So there are many theaters in the Acropolis and near the Parthenon today. This is because the Dionysus is the god of wine, and the theaters are based on this because there's a story that this man, I can't recall his name now, but he So every year on Dionysus's birthday, the priests or his people, they dressed up as golden goats, and they went and they sang songs about him turning from a mortal to a god in his afterlife, and then they sang songs about his past, and they danced around his altar. But this man, he every year he would go to the golden goats that sang, the priests, around Dionysus's altar, and he would ask the exact same questions that he did the year before that he already knew the answer to. So this was the first form of acting for the Greeks that they knew of. So they started this acting of not knowing the answers when he really did. It led to the comedy and drama today, and which is why there are theaters built up on the Acropolis. Also, there's a prince. The prince after Alexander the Great was buried on top of a mountain. I'm not sure if you can see it from here, but it's over in that area. And he has a sort of temple up there, and this was really quite interesting since the Greeks built it a burial place for him up there, since the mountains were usually for the gods to for monuments and temples to honor the gods. But this prince apparently gave very much to the city, so they wanted to have him in a very good place, and those were his last words on his deathbed before he passed, that he wanted to be buried on top of a mountain, so the Greeks gave him that wish.
At several points during Parthenon's building and decline, it switched religions. So originally it was Greek and dedicated to the virgin goddess Athena, and after a while it was a statue of Athena was taken down as it converted to Christianity, and it was a temple dedicated to the Virgin Mary in Christianity. And when Athens was invaded by Jews, it was the Virgin Mary, and the temple was changed into a mosque.
The Jews. That was the Muslims.
The Muslims, sorry, not the Jews. It was invaded by Muslims and was turned into a mosque. So before it was turned back into the Parthenon, the Greek Parthenon, by archaeologists.
Thank you for listening to ClassroomNomads.com today, and we'll see you